Our next speaker embodies that. He waved the American flag when many did not in the 1968 Olympics. He took a stand. He also is the oldest heavyweight champion that ever lived. He is a person that has done so much. And matter of fact, you as the audience will get a chance to grill him. I know. I had to throw that in there. He became the champion at age 46, beating a man who was 20 years younger than him. As a matter of fact, he did it at the MGM Grand right next door. This is a man who embodies what being an entrepreneur is all about. He's a man, yes, who was very successful in his profession. He trained. He became good. He became the best. He became the champ. And now he's here to show us lessons that we can learn and use in our own life. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a distinct honor for me to welcome the champ, George Foreman.
Love and happiness. Wait a minute, something's going wrong. Someone's on the phone.
Thank you. I'm happy to be with you. I don't know how you got Don King off the stage. You got to make promises to him. I don't know if he told you, I was the heavyweight champion of the world. And way back in the day. And for the first time, and I was knocking people out one by one. You line them up, I'd knock them down. And so Don King came to me in Livermore, California. He said, George, that's why you got to have something going on if you're going to go in business. You better learn how to cry. You got to learn how to dance. You got to learn how to do something other than what you do. You got to add something to it. So Don King came up. He said, George, I got this fight with Muhammad Ali, and this was just as I'm getting ready to fight Ken Norton. I said, does he understand that I'm probably going to get beat by Ken Norton? He said, well, listen, George, no one gives me an opportunity. He said, they stop me because of the color of my skin. They stop me because they think I'm a gangster. They stop me, and George, and tears started rolling out of his eyes. I said, really, they stopping you for all those reasons? He said, yeah, George, please give me a chance. Please. I said, what are you going to give me? He said, $5 million. And at that time, no one had ever earned that kind of money. He said, but I got to give Ali $5 million too. I said, I don't care. I'd give him $5 myself just to get a hold to him. So I signed a blank sheet of paper because I thought he couldn't do it anyway. But the idea of helping someone who just didn't believe someone would give him an opportunity. I said, I'm going to sign right on this paper and you build a contract around it. Put the money in a letter of credit and you got to fight. Really, George? Never seen a guy stop crying so quick. And he made the George Foreman and Muhammad Ali, they call it the rumble in the jungle. I call it the mugging in the jungle. Because I went there with a championship belt, 2 belts, left with none. I was mugged. And even now people say, well, George, they said you lost the fight to Muhammad Ali because he psyched you out and you were mad at him and you were just angry because of the things he was saying. And a friend of mine just reminded me, if you look around on the internet anywhere, you will not see a photograph of Don King, George Foreman, and Muhammad Ali because we were never together. We signed the contract. I spoke to him on the telephone. I said, you sure you want this fight with me? I told Ali. He said, yeah, I'll promote it. I said, really? As soon as they announced the fight, the next day I heard him in a press conference saying, George is a Frankenstein monster. I said, that ain't promoting it. But then I said, he's only calling me the Frankenstein monster because that's who I am. But we were never together in a press conference. We never did a press conference together at all. That fight was that big, it didn't even need it. And so doing Don King a favor, poor guy, and doing Muhammad Ali a favor, poor old guy, I get in the ring with Muhammad Ali and I beat him up the first round. He hit me, of course. And I beat him up the second round. He hit me again, of course. But it wasn't getting anywhere, and I just kept beating this guy. Finally, about the seventh round, I hit him hard and he fell on me, and I thought, now I got him. When he fell on me, he says, "That all you got, George?" All I was thinking, you doing Don King a favor here? That was all I had. The eighth round there, I'm on the canvas. He hit me with the most fast right hand I've ever been hit before. I'm laying on the canvas here. 1, 2. I'm thinking, man. When I jumped up, I was no longer heavyweight champ of the world. I thought I had lost the dearest thing in my life, the heavyweight championship of the world. And to the worst guy in the world, he's over there screaming, "Didn't I tell you?" Doing Don King a favor. All because Don King was crying. I ended his tears and started my own tears. And it would take 20 years to get my world championship back. But I was willing to work. I just said that because when I saw Don King there, this man was most powerful with such history to make those boxing matches, big boxing matches, and he did it with his tears. But I did mine. I had my love affair, and that's what I'll talk about briefly, about my first love affair. No one ever forgets their first love affair. I think when you're about 14 or 13, 14, and 15, you fall so deeply in love, it's never like that ever again. That first love affair, I never forgot it. My first love affair was sleep. Oh, I love sleep. I'd get up in the morning, and it's time to go to school, put on a show for my folks, walk out like a nice boy going to school, get close to the school and make my rounds back through the woods, come back to my home, climb through the window, and get back in the bed. And then I had a timer because I'd get up about 2:30, jump up, go same march around, and leave the school like a good boy. Everybody thought I was going to school. And I loved it. But because that was my love affair, I'd sleep. I could stand up and sleep. When I did make it to school, the teachers, I'd wake up, look like I knew they were watching me. Then when they weren't watching, I'd go back to sleep. I slept all through school. But that love affair had to end. It had to end. Once, a cousin of mine who stayed home, I thought she had gone to work, but she'd come to Houston to get a job. She said she was leaving, so when I crawled back in the window, she saw me crawling through the window. She said, "Hey, vest." She called me vest because I slept in a vest. She said, "What you doing?" I said, "Oh, I forgot something." She said, "George, you didn't forget anything." "Oh, see, I forgot something. I'm going to school." She said, "You didn't forget anything." I said, "I'm going to school." She said, "No one in this family ever goes to school." I said, "Yeah, but I'm going to be something." She said, "Go to sleep. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell no one in this family ever becomes anything." I said, "That's a lie." Then she started naming one member. I said, "Yeah, you're right about that, but I'm going to be something." She said, "I'm not going to tell, Vess. Go back to sleep. You're not going to be anything." I got so angry with my cousin, I jumped up, went to the door, slammed the door, and I almost went to school. But the idea that someone can just write you off so quickly, I went and sat in the woods thinking, yes, I am going to be something, I don't know, in these woods. But that was the end of my love affair with sleep. So one day in my ambition, I went out to decide, since I got to do something, my friends and I started mugging people. Yeah. And as I was out one night, wasn't even doing much, the police saw me and my friends. And they chased behind me, and I was the bigger of the one because I'd just strong-armed the guys, and the smaller guys would get their wallet. But the police gained on me. I said, what am I going to do? And I saw a house because I heard the police coming, climbed and crawled underneath the house to hide from the police. And I got under the house and I got scared. My mom used to always give these lectures when her sisters were sitting around and they'd boast. Papa never had any thieves in his family. No one in Papa's family ever went to jail. All of his children, no one were criminals. And I was like, why they keep saying that over at me? And I'd sit there and smile, but I was the criminal. But under that house, I heard my mother's voice saying, Papa never had any thieves. Then I had to go call back on my education because the police were getting close. I'd seen the movie The FBI, and whenever the criminals were being pursued and they couldn't catch them, they'd go out and get their dogs. And in my neighborhood, you see those police with the dogs. And when the dogs would get close to them, the criminals would crawl into the water and get out on the other side, and the dogs couldn't smell through the water, and they would be free. And I thought, wow. And I remember looking under that house. I guess it was a busted sewage pipe. It was slop under there. I covered myself. I said, well, it's part mud from head to toe so the dogs wouldn't steal from me. Wouldn't sniff me out. And I laid there thinking, if I ever get from under this house, I'll never steal anything from anyone, ever. I'm going to do something with my life. And I heard my cousin saying, nobody in this family ever becomes anything. Anyway, I crawled from under the house, and 2 kids were walking by. I said, seeing the police? They said, no. Whew. And I started walking. My sisters asked me when I got home, where have you been? I said, nowhere. But I had been on a journey of my life. I heard a commercial. Jim Brown, the football player, and Johnny Unitas, the great quarterback for the Baltimore Colts in those days, said, if you're looking for another chance, join the Job Corps. And I joined the Job Corps. I joined. And I went into the Job Corps. Grants Pass, Oregon is where I landed. Out in the woods. I was so homesick. I missed my mother so much. Kept getting into trouble, though. Then I got another love affair. Let me tell you about this new love affair. I still have it, too. One time, the center director caught me in so many fights. He said, we're going to kick you out, George. I said, what? I've never had 3 meals in my life. They give you breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I said, don't kick me out of here. He said, but you keep getting into trouble. I said, but don't kick me out. So he gave me a duty to dig a hole 4 feet deep, 4 feet wide. He said, and it was in granite. In Grants Pass, Oregon, there's a lot of granite up there, so I had a pile drive. Finally, and I scooped it out. It took me days. He said, you'll be the only one to work on it. I got it dug. And after the end of the day, he said, George, since you dug the hole, you're going to have the honor. This is going to be for the center's flagpole. Flagpole, hole. I just wanted to stay in the program. He said, so because of that, you'll be honored to raise the flag, the American flag, the first day on our grand opening here. I said, great. Went back to my dormitory, and I told all of the guys, and the little counselor was there. He said, well, George, be careful out there raising the flag. I said, why? He said, because if it hits the ground, it's dead. What? He said, you be careful. And everybody looked at me. I said, you're going to raise it. The kids laughed. I said, forgot. That's what got me in trouble, beating people up. I had to raise that flag. And I said, suppose it falls out of my hand and dies in front of all those people. So I finally got it up. The wind hit it. That was my love affair. It was with the American flag. And I heard a guy speak, call him. He was talking, giving a demonstration with the He was the strongest man I've ever seen. He did a push-up with the heaviest kid in the Job Corps Center. He looked at me as if to say, some of you are getting into fights all the time because of names folks are calling you. People calling you names. He said, don't worry about what people call you. Don't worry about names people call you. You're an American. That's your name. And no one can take that away from you. I like that. One night, in the day room in the Job Corps Center, there was a boxing match on. It was Cassius Clay fighting Floyd Patterson in those days. And after the fight was over, all the kids looked at me and said, George, you're such a big bully. You think you're so tough. Why don't you become a boxer? I said, okay, I'll show you. I'm going to be a boxer. So that made me travel to Pleasanton, California, where they had another Job Corps Center where I'd take up boxing. I met the boxing coach, Doc Broders, walked up to him. I said, hey, I want to be a boxer. He said, you're big enough and you're ugly enough. Come on down to the gym. And it wasn't even 2 weeks I was into the gym. He had a fight for me. I said, okay, boxing match. All the kids would come to the gym, and when I saw the guy that I was going to box, he was so skinny, you could see his ribs. So I went and told all my friends, please come see me fight. I got one big rib here. I know I'm going to beat him. So I got into the ring that night, and he hit me with something called a jab. Boom. I said, you better not do that again. Because boom, he did it again, so I tried to pick him up. They said, no, put him down. You can't do that. They laughed me out of the gym. I said, I'll never get back into boxing again. I'm done with that sport. Oh, the people laughed at me. I swung and I'd miss him and fall down, almost fall out of the ring. But Doc Broders convinced me if you stick with it, George, you could be an Olympic gold medalist. I didn't even know what the Olympics were. But finally I did. I was picked. They didn't like my style in the amateurs because what I would do, when I get nervous, I close my eyes and I swing wild. When I look up, someone would be on the floor. I tried to be a baseball player early in life, and I was a good baseball player, but I was always afraid that ball was going to hit me. And when I get in the ring, it's like there was a bunch of baseball players after me, trying to pitch that ball in my head. So I went one fight after another, and I finally qualified for the Olympic team. Couldn't believe it. They didn't like my style, too wild. But the rules were, if you win, you proceed. You keep going. And I'd win, by knockout mostly. Finally, when I was on the Olympic team, I was so afraid. Meeting my opponent from Russia. Now, the finals. Whoever would win this would be my fourth boxing match, would be a gold medalist. He came out after me, my opponent from Russia, and I remember thinking, closed my eyes, and I looked up, he was way across the ring. He came again. He'd be across the ring. I said, maybe I should open my eyes. And when I did, I windmilled him, and I became an Olympic gold medalist. So now I'm standing I had a small American flag at that time. Everybody made a lot of talk about it because I'd forgotten people look different. In the Olympic Village, you walk up to someone and say, hello, and they speak another language. I said, I have to make everybody know where I'm from. So I had my small flag in the road for good luck. So I started waving, and everyone applauded. And I bowed to the judges like, we got you now. Now on the platform, you're standing there with the silver medal and the bronze medal there, and I'm on the big platform, and they're playing the national anthem. And I heard my cousin in the background saying, you're never going to be. I said, shut up. I must have been American there playing that song. This is what I said in my head, and I just smiled my way on into that victory. I had become an Olympic gold medalist from a guy who had broke his love affair with sleep. Everybody saying, well, now you need to make some money. I said, I'm not going to be a pro fighter. I said, you can make 1,000. I said, you can make 10,000. Now someone said, you can make 1 million. I said, yep, I'll do it. Then I became the top contender, knocking one guy out after another. I started opening my eyes, by the way. I'd hit guys. Sometimes guys were so afraid of me. One time this guy was mad at me in Seattle, Washington. He came after me. I said, "What is wrong with you?" Someone had told him George was a bum, just money behind him. You beat him, money will come behind you. So he came after me, and I swung with all my might, and I missed him by a foot. He felt the wind. He almost broke my back hugging me. Looked like he said, "Someone lied." I said, "I'll get him now." The ref made him break. This time I swung, and I missed him by 6 inches. He like, "Oh no." I said, "I got him now." I swung at this guy with all my might, and I missed him by 1 inch. When I did, he hit the floor. I said, "Man, get up," and the crowd saw it too. They booed us both. I said, "Man, get up." And he like he's gonna get up, and then he said. So that night they had a little reception, and I wasn't speaking. I was sad. He came up to me. He said, "You're upset, huh?" I said, "Yep." He said, "You're really angry at me?" I said, "Yep." He said, "You're mad?" I said, "Yep." He said, "You wanted me to get up?" I said, "Yes." He said, "You wanted to kill me, didn't you?" I said, "Yes." He said, "That's why I didn't get up." Well, that was the story with me, but next thing you know, I'm matched the number one contender with Smoking Joe Frazier for the championship of the world. Now remember, all of this is happening because I broke my love affair with sleeping. In boxing, you had to get up every morning and run and train. You had to answer, and after a while, you're not only the follower, you become a leader. And I was afraid of Joe Frazier more than any man in the world that I'd ever faced. Because with Joe Frazier, if you hit him, he liked it. If you miss him, he just made him mad. Smoking? You don't want to fight people with a name like that, Smoking. But I knocked Joe Frazier down that night. I was afraid of him. I knocked him down once. I realized he's going to kill me. I knocked him down again. I said, "Oh, he's really mad." I knocked him down again. He jumped up again. I said, "Boy, the next round, he's going to get stronger." I knocked him down again. After about 6 times, they stopped the fight and declared me the heavyweight champion of the world. Then I'd beaten everybody who had ever beaten him. I was matched with the great Muhammad Ali. And that's what came in the story with Don King. Don King messed up my championship of the world. He cried me into facing Muhammad Ali, and I lost the title, as I said. But the conclusion of it is, I was out of boxing for 10 years. I didn't even make a fist. I was just so big. Got on the scale once, it said 315. I called the scale a liar. But I had to get back into business, this time, the boxing, to make a living for my family. You can't feed your kids excuses. I have 5 sons, all named George Edward Foreman. People ask me all the time, "Why would you name all your sons George?" I tell them, you let Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali, Vander Holyfield, Ken Norton hit you on the head and see how many names you can come up with. But it's easy to have sons, but the commitment to raise them and take care of them and send them to college is a different thing. I had to earn some money. People would laugh at me and say, "George Foreman, how can he become the prodigal son of boxing when he looked like the fatted calf?" He'll never be champion of the world as long as his training camp is next to Baskin-Robbins. And one day I looked in the mirror, I said, they're only saying these things because it's true. What are you going to do? But I fought my way all the way back up to the number one contendership, and I got a chance to fight for the title. This time, the last time, I was 45 years old. People not only calling me another name, they calling me old too. Now, I'm fighting Michael Moore, who's young enough to be my son. but he didn't fight like my son. What am I going to do? They kept saying. So I got in the ring with Michael Moore. He whipped me up one round, and I whipped him up. He whipped me up. Then after about 10 rounds, I could hear that same voice as Muhammad Ali. That all you got, George? Michael Moore hit me, and I think I said back to him, no, this time I have the George Foreman lean, mean, fat-reducing grilling machine. Boom! And I knocked him out. And I became the oldest man ever to be heavyweight champion of the world. I heard a lady say once, if you learn to sail, she had built this great empire of cosmetics. She said, if you learn to sail, her dad had told her, you will never starve. And I thank goodness, first of all, as that man would tell me years earlier, you're an American, nobody can take that away from you, and I'd learned to sail. I became the champion of the world, and now I'm the king of the George Foreman. I'm the king of the grill, and I'm always trying to start another business. I hit the floor every morning thinking, boy, that was yesterday. What have you done today? You got to keep searching and keep finding products. And you got to keep working because no one will work for you better than you will work for yourself. Now, I heard some of you may have a couple of questions for me, and I'd be happy to answer those questions for you. Let me tell you something first. I was hit first in the 40s. You know, the doctor. I started hitting back in the 50s. In the 60s, I obtained an Olympic gold medal. In the 70s, I became the heavyweight champion of the world. In the 80s, I really made the sports writer scratch their head. In the 90s, I became the oldest man ever to be champion of the world. And in this new millennium, I am the king of grilling. Looking at me is like seeing something you'll seldom see, like a total eclipse. So if you go home one day and say, well, you know, I needed to ask and I should have asked, shame on you. I'll allow you to ask, and they have the questions designed that may help you. I know I've needed a lot of help, and a lot of the help that I've gotten has come from people who had already been there and back. If you want to make it, sitting here in the United States, there's no excuse. You can make it. There's always something new to be built, always a new business, a new product. If you've had it all and you've lost it, so what? That gives you a reason to jump up and do it again. I did it twice, heavyweight champion of the world twice, within 20 years. First question.
Muhammad Ali passed away this year, and he knocked you out. And yet, you are the one who can take a punch because you're still sharp and in a very brutal sport. So, what made the difference? Why is it that Muhammad Ali suffered from Parkinson's disease and so forth, and you seem to have survived fine? What's the difference?
You know, heroes don't truly suffer. Heroes never suffer. They just have proof of what they did. And that's where I looked at Muhammad Ali. What a hero. He had proof that he had given all he'd given. I used to walk around, because I'm old enough to remember World War II veterans sitting around, they're talking to you, enjoying it. Then later on that evening, they take off, after they boasting, take off their leg. I said, what? I didn't know you had just one leg. Whatever they had, it was just proof that they were there. And that's what I feel about Muhammad Ali. That was my best friend. I miss him, and I wish Parkinson was only brought on by boxing. Then all we'd have to do is outlaw boxing. But it's deeper than that. A lot of us need to get to work and get a lot of funds together so we can fight that disease. and we can help it in the future. And listen to this, ZYXWVUTSRQPONMLKJIHGFEDCBA. Now, that's the alphabets backwards. Before I fought Muhammad Ali, I could say them four.
Mr. Foreman, have you ever had a chance to go visit Joe Lewis's grave in Arlington Cemetery?
The most wonderful time of my life was to visit Joe Lewis's grave in the Arlington Cemetery. Oh, and I was so proud because I really knew Joe Lewis. And I think everyone should get a chance, if you're ever in the area, to go. It's right there in Arlington, Joe Lewis's graveyard. Thank you for asking.
May I give you this, sir?
Yes. You know what? I still have that love affair. No one is ever going to talk me out of that. No one.
What was your relationship to Muhammad Ali in that first boxing match where you lost?
How old are you?
12.
I'm going to beat your dad up. That's what I'm going to do. But Muhammad Ali and I were great friends. We were always good friends because he was a joker. Always made you feel like he was listening to what you had to say. So when I made the fight for Africa, I called myself doing him a favor. I had no idea he was going to whip me. But after the fight, that's when he became my enemy, taking my title in the way he did. We were friends beforehand. Thank you. How old are you? 12. Once again, 12. He told me twice.
A quick two-part question. Why were you so complimentary of Mr. Ali after he beat you? I mean, that's very hard for most boxers. I mean, you see Duran is not super complimentary of Mr. Leonard, but you're very gracious. How can there be no animosity when someone basically knocked you out?
You beat me and knocked me out, I'll be your friend too. Anyone want to be friends with me? Step up here, let's fight it out right now. But in reality, we had a lot in common, more in common than we had not. He was a good friend of mine. I learned to love him.
And very quickly, why wasn't there ever a rematch? There was talk about a rematch. The first 7 rounds were very competitive. Why didn't that ever happen?
It wasn't the first 7 round, it was that 8th round that caused the trouble. One was scared and the other was glad of it. We never fought again.
Okay.
I hope I answered that for you. Another one.
Did you ever spend time with Muhammad Ali outside of the ring?
I spent a lot of time with Muhammad Ali outside the ring. We became great friends, but still wasn't the kind of guy you want to go on a fishing trip with. Talk too much. Thank you.
Mr. Foreman, I was so impressed with your comeback, and I introduced my kids to you through YouTube. We watched a lot of your fights, and I just really think you're a great boxer and a great man. I am interested, though, who hit you the hardest in your career?
Now, you know it's not like ice cream and stuff where you can say, that was good, that was not good. Boy. It was in Las Vegas, one of the first major heavyweight fights. I fought Ron Lyle. Ron Lyle hit me so hard it didn't hurt. All I could remember was like, why is my legs are just, I'm melting. I don't know. He hit me so hard it didn't hurt, but I kept getting up. And he beat me so bad that finally he got tired and fainted, and I won the fight. He hit me hardest, though. Ron Lyle.
Thank you.
Out of your 80-plus fights, which boxer have you wished you could have gone against that you haven't?
Whew. You know, in the dressing room before a boxing match is the most frightening time of your life. You sit back there thinking, why am I doing this?
I know
Are
from
you
experience.
crazy? I said, are you crazy? You said you would never do it again. If you could live through that, you would never say, I wish I had fought someone, because beforehand is that dressing room where it's so frightening. You know, they said Mike Tyson and George Foreman, but then every time I think about Mike Tyson, I say,
Hey, George, I got your grill. It's a great product. I love it. Tell me about how you got started with that. Did you design that yourself, or did you just put your name on a product that somebody brought to you?
well, it was a product that I helped develop in its present form. It turned out to be a beautiful piece of furniture. And once I put my name on it, we just made it better and better, even with griddles on it. But it was a product, and I did not invent it. I just marketed it.
Good evening, George.
Yeah, hello, my friend.
Hello. Can you tell us about your diet and your current exercise routine? How do you stay healthy?
Well, before I went back into boxing, I told you about my weight. I'd get up every morning and eat a dozen eggs. I really did. But when I went back into training, I got serious. I only ate 11. The good thing about being an athlete, if you don't take care of yourself, you're just not going to live long.
So how about exercise?
I
today?
got to get up. When I built the last home I built, it was a big gym, about 300 square feet of nothing but gym, where I'd lift weights. I still got a muscle too. And I lift weights and treadmills, and most importantly these days, the bicycle. And the recumbent bike, yeah. And I do a lot of that, and I even have a punching bag. I hit it once or twice and say, that's enough.
Mr. Foreman, can you tell us a little bit about how you went from being an athlete to an entrepreneur?
I had 10 years out of boxing where I didn't even make a fist. And I decided to be an evangelist at the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ, because the last fight I had in the 70s, I had an experience in my dressing room where I was dead and alive again. I saw blood on my hand and forehead. I started screaming, Jesus Christ is coming alive in me. And everybody thought I was crazy. They rushed me to intensive care. And I lived through it. I said, I got a second chance to live. And I became a preacher. So I go out on the street corners, the only way I could preach. And people would pass me by like a freight train did the old hobos. And one day I decided, I'm going to say who I am. And I talked about George Foreman and talked about my religion, especially about Jesus Christ, and they would stop for a moment. I learned to sell, and I fell in love with selling. Went back to boxing, started selling. That I hated. The age 50 is not a death sentence. I sold that pretty good. Then Doritos, McDonald's, Pepsi Cola. Everybody was on that bandwagon. And one fella said, George, you're doing so well. Why don't you make your own product, making these other folks rich? I said, how much you going to pay me? They said, no. Let's become partners. And we started a partnership. We called in those days the joint ventures. And I'd have the lion's share, and I'd sell the grill. No money down, and I started working. And before you know it, we sold 120 million of those things worldwide. The grill was a success.
Wow.
Who were your heroes as a child when you were growing up, and who are your heroes today?
Oh, so many heroes. I remember looking and I saw Jimmy Brown. He took his helmet off on the football field one day. I remember thinking he had this mustache. I said, that's the way I want to look. I started scraping my face so that I could grow a mustache. And John Wayne, I wanted to walk like him. Oh, man. Johnny Unitas, the story was that he had made one telephone call, a 10-cent telephone call to the Baltimore Colts, and he got his chance to I had these heroes, and anything they would say, I'd listen like that. And I think Mary Kay, I think she was the one who said that about Dad told her, learn to sell.
Thank you.
Mr. Foreman, sorry, I have to go on my tiptoes. You mentioned your run-ins with the police. We see a lot of young black men who are having run-ins with the police. We're seeing a lot of riots. We're seeing a lot of violence on the streets with Black Lives Matter. What message do you have for the people involved with Black Lives Matter? You mentioned your love affair with the American flag. What's your message for people who might have a different opinion and who are affiliated with Black Lives Matter?
You know, the best thing that ever happened to me, and I think it's the best thing that have happened to most everybody, and to be honest with you, as I've traveled around the world, the best thing that has happened to the world probably in the last 200 years is the United States of America. Everyone is going to have an opportunity to search that out for themselves. And the conclusion is, if you love your country, you can make it a better place if you love it. It's like every year you got to go out on the farm and cut hay and pack it away. There's no 1 year fix it, and it's going to be fixed forever. Oh, I fell in love with this country, and I just think all things are possible through it.
Thank you.
Good question. Good questions. That was like that right hand I didn't see Muhammad Ali throwing. You know, he hit me with the fast. The right hand was not hard, but I was like, ooh, oops. Next thing I know, wham! I said, I didn't see that happening. It was fast, and it was sneaky, and it hurt, but not the heaviest punch, just quick. And I hope I've added to your adventure. Remember, start from the bottom. There's nothing wrong. If you start from the bottom, there's nothing but all the way back up you can do. God bless you. Okay.
George Foreman, ladies and gentlemen. Woo!